There is a black stone that caused Joseph to go from Pennsylvania all the way back to New York, back in Fayette, back to the Whitmer farm. Why? What the heck is this black stone? Well, apparently, this black stone caused and created pages and pages and pages on Revelation about building Zion and all of the corrections that needed to be made within the church. Now, was Joseph the one with this black stone, and was Joseph the one filling out these pages and pages of corrections and changes that need to happen? No, we have someone that we're going to read about. His name is Hiram Page. Who the heck is Hiram Page? Is he just some this crazy Joe Schmo that thinks that he can just come in and do whatever? Who is he? So Hiram Page is actually, he knows he's in it. He's one of the 8 witnesses. And actually, if you didn't know this, Hiram is brother-in-law, is that right? Yeah, brother-in-law to Oliver Cowdery. So they're married into being related. He was one of the 8 witnesses, and he was part of the core leadership of the church. So he's just not some random whoever, I don't know. Now, just a little understanding. Obviously now, in hindsight, knowing what we know, we can look back on Hiram Page and be like, what are you doing, dude? But at the time, we just barely recently put together the church. They still, Joseph including, they don't know what they're doing. Meaning they are going revelation by revelation to see what the next step is. And so really, is this wrong? Do they know that yet? No one knew this yet. And in fact, it converted, well, not converted, but we had a big, large number of believing people to everything that Hiram received from this certain stone. Now if you go into some church, history, we find out that it's black. Not that that means any difference. But at the time, it's well, it sounds legit. I mean, Joseph received stuff from a stone, so maybe other people can too, right? I don't know. We're still learning. This is all new to us. Is this right? And so Joseph, he was originally going to wait until conference time to address it at wide as a response. But he felt drawn, obviously, to leave Pennsylvania, go back to New York, and clear it up then. And so how does he clear it up? Well, Doctrine and Covenants 28 is how we clear it up. So, cool. It's only 16 verses, and this is in response to, he actually starts with addressing Oliver first, and then he addresses Hiram. But this is in response to Hiram, the black stone, all of this revelation. Is it right? Is it wrong? Because Hiram is a well-intentional man. Okay, let's just read it and then we'll go back to maybe why did this happen? How did this happen? I have some things, but just think about this. How did we get here? How did this happen? Why would it be allowed to happen, this whole thing? You know what I mean? Let's read, shall we? We only got 16 verses, and as always, as we read, make sure to think of yourself, because it's always about you. Know what I mean? All right, Doctrine and Covenants 28, now that you have your history and context presented to you. Behold, I say unto thee, Oliver. Do you think it's a little interesting that he addresses Oliver first? Maybe not really, because Oliver actually went to him previously with what Oliver thinks is revelation for the church, and Joseph corrected him. So Oliver is believing what Hiram received on on Hiram's page believes it. So we're starting to address Oliver first. So Oliver, that it shall be given unto thee, that thou shalt be heard by the church in all things, whatsoever thou shalt teach them by the Comforter, the Spirit, concerning the revelations and commandments which I have given. Behold, verily, verily, I say unto thee, no one shall be appointed to receive commandments and revelations in this church, excepting my servant Joseph Smith Jr., for he receiveth them as Moses. Why he says it as Moses? Because Moses was a prophet. So basically he's saying only prophets receive this kind of revelation. Not all revelation, just this. And this meaning the revelation that Hiram wrote down was in regards to the building of the church. Okay, so that's the difference. It wasn't just Hiram receiving revelation for himself. He was receiving it for the church as a whole. And he's saying, no, only prophets can receive revelation for church entirety, not individuals. Thou shalt be obedient unto the things which I shall give unto him, even as Aaron, to declare faithfully the commandments and revelations with power and authority unto the church. And if thou art led at any time by the Comforter to speak or teach, or at all times by way of commandment unto the church, thou mayest do it. So he's saying, if you feel inclined to say and do things by the Spirit, that's fine. That's for you personally. You can still receive that for you directly. Thou shalt not write by way of commandment, but by wisdom. Thou shalt not command him who is at the head of the church, meaning you can do these things personally with the Spirit still, but you cannot command and teach and direct the prophet, head of the church, prophet. For I have given him the keys of the mysteries and the revelations which are sealed, until I shall appoint unto them another in his stead. And now, behold, I say unto you, you shall go unto the Lamanites. I said it like a floor. The Lamanites is what I made my kitchen floor. Okay. The Lamanites. The Lamanites. Preach my gospel unto them, inasmuch as they receive thy teachings. Thou shalt cause my church to be established among them, and thou shalt have revelation, but write them not by way of commandment. Let me come back to what that is exactly, to go and preach unto the Lamanites. What does that mean in Joseph Smith days? I have an answer for you, but let me come back to that. Verse 9, and now behold, I say unto you that it is not revealed, and no man knoweth where the city of Zion shall be built, but it shall be given hereafter. Behold, I say unto you that it shall be on the borders by the Lamanites. Let me again tell you where that is in a second. Thou shalt not leave this place until after the conference, and my servant Joseph shall be appointed to preside over the conference by the voice of it. And what he saith to thee, thou shalt tell. And again, thou shalt take thy brother, Hiram Page, and brother, it's kind of funny. I mean, that's just how they talk, your brother in the gospel. But in this case, they really are actually related in real life. They're brother-in-laws. That's not what they meant, but I still thought that was pretty fun. All right, brother, Hiram Page, between him and thee alone, and tell him that those things which he hath written from that stone are not of me, and that Satan deceiveth him. For behold, I always wonder, what is Hiram, what are they thinking? Are they, embarrassed? Are they confused? I don't know. For behold, these things have not been appointed unto him, neither shall anything be appointed unto any of this church contrary to the church covenants. For all things must be done in order, and by common consent. Common consent is, when you raise your hand, it's sustaining. We say sustaining, they refer to it as common consent. Same thing in the church by the prayer of faith. And thou shalt assist to settle all these things according to the covenants of the church before thou shalt take thy journey among the Lamanites. It shall be given thee from the time thou shalt go unto the time thou shalt return, for thou shalt do, and thou must open thy mouth at all times, declaring my gospel with the sound of rejoicing. Amen. All right, so we got our reading in. Woohoo! A little history and context now that we did read it. Joseph was so nice. He didn't embarrass Hiram in front of a big group of people to clarify this. He nicely pulled him aside and decided to tell him just as a conversation to clarify. Now, I remember I spoke at a drug rehab facility. Why can't I think of oh my gosh, I can't think of what it's called. It's when you get out of prison and you don't have you like live there full time. Why can't I think of it? Anyways, I was going and I was speaking there. You have to get you choose to go to this church services. Not all of them are members, but they like going anyway. So I was speaking to about 100 of them. They just got out of prison. They're in like this drug program. Is it a halfway house? Am I saying this wrong? Anyways, I spoke to them. A lot of them weren't members. They're all out of prison. And they said, so like, don't you guys have prophets? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, halfway house. And they're like, so like, if you can receive revelation, if you have a God, this supposed God that you can talk to, then why you got a prophet? And this chapter is the clarifying difference. Prophet receives revelation for the church as a whole. We receive revelation for ourselves, for our personal life. Wouldn't it be just pure chaos if anyone can receive revelation for the whole church? You are very aware of how different all of us think. I think we saw that a lot in this past few months politically, or where people are at with, how things are run with the virus, like just everything. And even members of your ward, you're like, wow, we are very different. Now, if we could all receive this revelation for the church and, write it in a little note and send it to the offices, it would be chaos. So, again, this is the chapter, the differentiating between who can receive revelation for who and what. I like that how this was worded is saying, yes, Oliver, and to the masses, yes, you can still receive from the Spirit. So he didn't just put them down and shut them down fully. He just said, yes, you can receive from the Spirit, just not to this capacity. All right, before we end, I'll do a little fun fact on the Lamanites. This is actually the first time that we're hearing of an establishing city of Zion and where that's going to be built. This is the first time we've heard anything of yet. And we hear about the Lamanites. Okay, so what does that mean in the time frame of Joseph Smith? Now, the Lamanites, it actually, it means to preach unto Native Americans. That's what it means at this time in where they're at. And the Lamanites, it's actually a phrase that's understood to mean a line between Missouri and Indian Territory on the west. So it's actually kind of fun. There was several of them that were called to preach to the Lamanites. And coming from New York, where I'm from, Fayette, 45 minutes away. Palmyra's much closer. Fayette is not next door to Palmyra. They're separate. I'm definitely closer to Palmyra than I am Fayette. Fayette's even more out there. But where I am right now, everything used to be Indian reservations. Everything. Every single school that I went to, streets that are named, they are all after Indian tribes. So just a little fun fact of where I live and where they live. Buffalo, New York, just an hour from here. Huge Seneca Indian tribe. Our schools are all named after Indian tribes. Seneca, all of them. Why am I blanking? It's like my existence is all named after Indian tribes. Anyway, so they start here, they go up to Buffalo, an hour away, and they start among the Indian tribe, and then they make their way towards the Missouri line into Indian territories. So that's what they mean by the Lamanites. Anyways, not much. I don't want to say not much. This is just a good clarifying chapter to, again, set clarifying of what it means to start and unfold this restoration, because we have all the questions. They have all the questions. They're starting from scratch. So this is it. And do you know what? If you have the question of, well, like, how did they even get to where they are? How did Hiram even come up with pages and pages? Like, if he is a good intentioning man, then how did this even happen? I'm sure there are lots of different answers, and maybe my answer isn't the right answer, but I know that I have seen things happen only because it gets you to a point of question, resolve, understanding, so on and so forth. So in my mind, I like to picture this whole thing with Hiram and the stone really just something. God wanted something to happen just for Joseph to be in the position of going to the Lord, seeking further understanding and clarifying for the church. It's like anything to happen just for Joseph to go to the Lord with a question of, wait, what does this mean? Wait, what does this look like for our church? What is the answer here so we can move forward in the correct way? Does that make sense? Like, it could have been anything, but something to happen to get him to ask a specific question to continue to establish the right way and God's way of things. That makes sense, right? Maybe it doesn't. That's how my brain looks at this to piece it together. Anyways, you guys are great. You can always tell when my videos are on Sunday because I am not in sweatpants. I am only not in sweatpants on my Sunday videos, which is great. It's just great. Sorry that this chapter was more historical than it was inspiring, but maybe your Sunday takeaway is, if the clarifying factor that we just went over tonight is yes, you receive revelation for your life, maybe let's do that. Maybe let's go to him and ask questions, and we listen and we pay attention to our reoccurring thoughts to better exercise our ability to talk to him directly. Because we know that those reoccurring thoughts and anything good coming is God communicating to us. And we know that the Spirit is the language that he uses to talk to us. So when we feel, hear the Spirit, it is God himself communicating with his language to us. So, let's just do that. Better things, good things, all good things are coming, and I will see you tomorrow.